Hi, we're Startup with Seoul, and today we have David Lee. Thank you for
Hey,
your time.
hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for the
Yeah.
opportunity.
So maybe we
Hey,
can start
David.
by having a little bit of introduction. So can you maybe introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so the intro part, right? Who I speak to always kind of have a different intro, but for startup founder in the US, I think it's interesting to talk about when I actually moved to the US. I think in like Korean Americans, when we talk to each other, depends when you move to the US, you kind of like know like, oh, what this person has actually has gone through. So the people who came here during high school, who came here in college, who actually came here for a job, they all have like different kind of culture. They live in different cultural background. So I came here in my high school freshman year from Seoul to Houston, Texas. So right, so it was a super progressive city, and now I'm in the middle of Texas. I had to go through my high school time there. That's when like Windows 97 like first came out. That's when I got first the PC experience and like the CD-ROM experience. And I was talking to my daughter when I first bought the computer. I just like spent my 24/7 just on a computer on the first time on the internet. That's when I started a diving into homepage website. You remember like Netscape, Internet Explorer, right? So I was also doing all that
HTML,
stuff. Yeah,
CSS.
HTML.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's how I starting as a web design, regardless of what I was studying at a college. I went to UT Austin, got into as a computer science major. However, I found out the what I liked about computer is not really the like logic programming stuff, but more of like creative stuff. So I ended up graduating with advertising degree, although I never really used that as my professional, but it actually really helped me drive the way I think about stuff. Like you have to be different. You have to come up with hundred different ideas before you select the best one. Those are kind of thing. It's kind of like my principle. So anyway, been always been a web designer. Gave myself title as a UX designer, and I just studied about like the difference between just being a regular designer versus UX. The main thing is you design for somebody, right? Instead of you design for like, for the beauty or something. Then always had my dream to work for places like a Google or Facebook while it was booming at the time. Decided to move to Silicon Valley. Then once I got here, I really got into like the culture of make it and break it and trying something new, right? This hackers like, environment I really loved here in Silicon Valley, make something and try something out, making a prototype. Then I got into this like, startup world, right? Got into a lot of hackathons. Then I started like, learning more about like your startup environment and like meeting different founders. Then yeah, and got into a lot of different corporate world, but my always my motivation was to actually create my own ideas and make a huge impact in the world. So my life journey has been corporate, save some money, right? Then get out and do some entrepreneurial stuff. If it's not successful, come back to corporate, make some more money, save it, right? Let's do it again. So I've been doing that. Right now, I'm doing my own venture right now, but yeah, so for my career, worked for several different corporate, including Google, GoPro, and Walmart, and involved in three different startups.
Yeah. What is your venture now?
It's called Korea to the US. It's helping Korean companies to expand in the US. So currently I have three clients, all they're doing all AI stuff. One of them actually started in the US. Two of them are Koreans who actually wants to expand in the US. So just helping them. My main skill set as a designer is get to the point where they can actually test their brand, test their message, and test their product just to see if their product from the Korea can actually make a little transition in the US and make an impact.
So you've seen a lot of Korean startups coming to the US, and you've seen it through the lens of UI UX, right? And I know you have a lot of startups coming to you and asking you to kind of take a look at their product. And I think we all here know that Korean startups, when it comes to the US, they have to make a lot of adaptations, right? It's usually, if they have a product. I mean, first of all, you know what? Maybe it's a question. I mean, Do you agree? Do you see that where they develop a product in Korea and they come into the US? Do you see a lot of changes that they need to make?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so related to that is I mean, so maybe like 10 years ago, Naver versus Google, there's like a stark difference, right? Like Naver was full of text. So we're talking about the homepage, right? Like the main page versus like Google, there's like a little search bar, and there's nothing else. And people were talking a lot about, Asian UI, like whether it's like Korea or China, it's very text heavy. It's like a portal, right? Versus like like in the US or global, a lot of the popular websites were like one purpose only, like one utility. Do you see like that much a difference now, or like do you think most of like Korean services are still like adopting like the US there's like a adaptive design, and there's all the design languages around these days, right? That you can like pick and adopt, and of course like there's like tools like Figma where there's a lot of like templates you can take and use. So do you see like the difference that exists today as much as it did 10 years ago?
yeah. So I think the gap has been like narrowed now. So that there isn't huge much different in terms of when you actually take a look at it. The difference is actually more of a cultural background where what you don't see, but just looking at upfront, um, because people are using the same template, same library, like, even if you just look at it from like front end perspective, it's a startup, right? So they want to use the simplest form of like a template out there and a component. So we are all sharing designs in this world. So in terms of like visual design, those are kind of getting into about the same level. But the main difference is this. I spoke about this one. It's a cultural difference between a Western culture and an Eastern culture. Western culture is known as a low context culture. Eastern culture is as known as a high context culture. Here is low context culture. You're more direct, so you don't need to know too much about the context. That's my communication still will be, right. So basically, like, hey, hi, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. So I'm good. You're good, right? Korea is a low context culture. So when you're having a conversation, sometimes they say things that you need to know a lot about their like history, right? So for instance, we used to greet people things like, have you been eaten? Did you eat? Like, 진지 드셨어요? 뭐 저녁 드셨어요? Right? It's a very weird way of greeting somebody. So if you don't have any context, this makes no sense. Yeah, I ate. Why are you asking me, right? But if you go into back to history, Korean was not well off, right? So there were a lot of people dying of the starvation. So one of the way to ask how they are doing is, have you guys been eating? Like, right? Well, have you been eating well? So that became the way to grid. So if you watch a lot of Korean webtoon, or actually webtoon, the Chinese, your world, or a Korean cartoon, there's not that much writing. There are a lot of like action things, right? And like, think about like Korean guy walking in the like rainy Seoul scene. You don't say much, but people know it because if you live in a Seoul, you can pick up those contexts. If you look at the US comics like superhero, you open it up, there's so many dialogue, right? Because it's a very direct. I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna break it, right? So the reason why I say this too, in terms of a UX and marketing stuff, I've done some translation slash content strategy work as well, right? With the help of AI, I can like do those kind of job also. What they bring me to me and they say, hey, I need to translate this, or I need to change this to more US cultural. Their stuff is really poetic. When you read it, it's beautiful, right? And if you think about it a couple more times, you'll be like, so this is why they were talking this way, right? But in the US, it's more of give me my benefit, what my pain point is, who my audience is, like right away, right?
So give me an example. Like what is something you see a lot in that context?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about one of my client. They are setting up autonomous a shop. So like a humanless like a shop, right? And using an AI system and with the visual the recognition. And what the copy they brought me, they say things like, has your business improved in the last 5 years? Where do you see like in 10 years, right? So, and they have like the video coming in the background. So they want audience to kind of figure it out, like what it means while watching the video. So it's like a more cinematic experience. But to me, I'm like, okay, why should I use this product, right? Is it a cheaper, or is it more accurate? Or is it giving more insight, right? So one, Eastern culture, very poetic, more emotional driven. Western culture, more logical, more business. I might be generalizing, but this
Right.
also has
Well,
been
well,
like
well,
studied
well,
as
there's a
well.
long,
That's
well,
fascinating.
I mean, it takes a long time to get to the point, right? With Eastern cultures, you, you know, you can see it even when two people are first meeting, right? Even if it's like for business purposes. First, you don't get to the point that easily, right? I mean, you chit chat a little bit, you do some small talk, you talk around, and then you get to the okay, this is why, even when you say like, that's not what why I wrote to you, but here's why I wrote to you, right? Where in English, it's like you're wasting my time, right? Why are you spending all this time? Like, we're here, you need something from me. I know you need something from me. Just tell me
Yeah.
what it is so I can give it to you so you can go on my
Yeah,
way,
do
right?
you think it's more like a Western versus Asian culture, or do you think Silicon Valley in particular? I mean, Silicon Valley is obviously like, hey, let's go get, the result, right? Culture. So one of the things that I had to make the slight transition when I came to LA was LA people don't start a meeting, without talking about the weather and traffic for 15
Ah,
minutes.
interesting.
Like
Okay.
you can't like get to the point. Like you have to waste no one's time. You shouldn't waste anybody's time. You have to get to the point. That's been my mantra. And I learned everything about it from Silicon Valley, but then, like LA was different. And like France or Italy, they have like 2 hour lunch, just like get to know people. That's like, what they call business. So do you think it's more like a Western versus Asian, or do you think it's more pronounced in Silicon Valley?
If I jump in just real quick, I think it has something to do with the language as well. And I think Cheng, you probably experienced this, and I think all the Korean or American, you start speaking Korean and you feel like, okay, I'm just going around, circle. Like you have to do so many, like 안녕하세요, 어떻게 지내셨나, like right, and you have to be so polite. English, okay, boom, 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 I'm done. I send email, right? So that's how I feel. So I think it has a language as well. But however, I also agree with you. I was raised in Texas as well. So one thing I came to in the Silicon Valley, I also recognize here is also they're more trying to be efficient with like a agenda or like the meetings, right? Like you said, started right away. I think it has also to do with the culture, but I think as a language, it has a lot to do with it as well.
It's interesting you said that because when I was learning Korean, and I was in business meetings. I was trying to pick up on what's going on, and I remember like when you speak Korean, it is very vague sometimes. And I remember finishing the meeting and understanding. I thought I understood almost everything because I said somebody had to send somebody a report, but I wasn't sure who was supposed to send who. So I
Yeah,
asked.
yeah.
So I asked, and the my host told me, "Well, I don't know yet."
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know yet. So somebody needs to write it, and it's not clear who is going to need to write it because you can say the sentence without the subject, right?
Yes, I can definitely relate to that. So like one difference that I personally could see was like in Korean, there seems to be a lot of like shared context that has never been spoken. So it's like you're assuming everybody knows this
Mhm.
already, right? So you're kind of skipping that part, but then, hey, what if there's one person in the room who doesn't know about that? As opposed to like, when you go to like classes in the US, they spend a lot of time like talking about the stuff like basic things that, hey, maybe there's like one person who didn't catch up, but then like there's a lot of people in the room who has already learned about this, but they
Right. And
still do the
I feel it's
recap. Yeah.
no, you're 100% right. And I feel it's even more compounded in Korean because it's impolite to ask, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't know, you're not supposed to ask.
Yeah.
And then there
Yeah.
could be more than one person in the room that doesn't know. Just nobody will ask.
Yeah, you're like late to the meeting and you're like, nodding and then writing notes,
Right.
and even though you don't know what's going on.
So
Right.
it's a interesting when you actually even think about in terms of a marketing. So Korea, just like you say, Chang, you expect somebody to know because it's a very homogeneous country, right? So even if you already live in a different state, you probably eat the same stuff that I've done. Like, so we probably watch the same thing. So in Korea, it's crazy. Back in the day, so TV, like K drama, like 38%, 47%, right? Rate of people watching, viewership rate. It's
Yeah.
crazy because like everybody watch together. We all listen to the same music. Very small country, very packed. So like Cheng said, everybody's kind of expect you know the context. So if I show you some very Korean kind of thing, everybody will know. They'll laugh about it. In the US, everybody came from like so much different culture, right? So that even if I do this, if you don't have the context, you don't even know why people are
So
even
so
laughing,
what's the
right?
practical tip when it comes to startups and designing their product? Is there any, like, let's say, like the tip for Korean startups or Asian startups? Hey, if you want to build a global product, yeah, you can definitely go to like Figma and then use the existing templates. I mean, that's something that everybody does. But then
Mhm.
beyond that, any practical tip for Korean companies building global products from the UI UX perspective?
Yeah, I've actually also expanded in India. I used to work for Google, MBU, next billion user, and I've actually launched a couple things in India as well. The reason why I said it, it doesn't matter if it's a startup or a corporate. When you're actually starting something that never been in the world before, right? So even if it's a Korean product, if you come to the US, you're, in my opinion, you're starting from the zero, right? You have to start from the ground up. Even such a big company like a Google, when they came to India, they started from like user number one, right? Who this person is. So my main thing will be you gotta know your come up with your niche audience. So first know your core value of your product, and because of that value will not change, your messaging will change, right? And so that the core value of a product, you need to figure it out who is going to be resonate with this core value in the US. And there are several ways to actually like find these people. But where I focus most on is which like, a group of people you can spend a least amount of your like effort, but get the most amount of data, right? So who can you actually move the most, right? Then you need to figure it out, like why you're making such an impact or such a change in this particular industry. That's your niche audience, right? Then come up with a messaging that's specifically for this particular group, right? Whether it could be like, Eastern way to do it, Western way to do it. It doesn't matter. It really depends on this group of people. Do they understand your context, right? So if you are targeting a right audience for your value prop that you know so much about your audience and a culture, then boom, you're already in the context, right? So good example, GoPro, Nick Woodman, when he found the company, he was a surfer himself in a Santa Cruz. Like he didn't have to like, explain the culture or understand the culture. He was in the culture as well. So, so like to answer your question, my answer to you, go to global. It start from the person number one, user number one, and figure out who this niche audience is. Just get into their culture and just be a part of their culture. I think is going to give you so much data. Yeah, to
So
start off.
how can you figure it out? Like
Uh,
especially in the B2B world. So I mean, I can be a surfer for GoPro, but if it's in the B2B world, I'm not gonna be a head of a medical facility or, a security officer, right? In a Fortune 100. So what's a good way to figure that out?
So I don't know the golden key to that opens every lock, right? I only know like the process or something that I would do in a certain situation. You also have to know that marketing and messaging is just like a product development. It's an iterative process, right? The best thing is come up with a hypothesis that you can have the quantifiable result, right? And how fast can you actually run this experiment in the shortest amount of time and use that data to make a next bet. I think that is the key, right? So when I say, if you ask me, how do I find somebody, right? You have to have an intuition of why you're going to be testing against this particular one group. And if you're a founder, you probably has the most intuition of, okay, because of I saw something, because of I felt something, I know this particular group has so many, I can go after them and test it, right? Test there first, get the data back, make that decision, quick decision, and just move forward. And what kind of data you're going to get back, I have no idea, right? So then that's just where you make a decision.
What's the best process that you saw that you
Uh,
remember?
Best way, I saw a channel. I don't know, this is my best friend. Good time. Arion and Jasper, they actually were from Silicon Valley. Um, they were serial entrepreneur. They are actually a couple, the Korean couple that I know, right? And they got into HR software. Is in the recruitment industry where they use AI to set up a meeting schedule for like those are corporate meetings where you set up like 6, 7 meetings, right? So using AI, everybody gets invited. They actually didn't really have a experience in the recruiting, the HR. So their CEO, Aryan, he actually studied HR and actually got a temp job as an HR person. And she worked for 3 different, like a major corporate as an HR person, as an assistant, right? She actually had a CPA degree. So she knew about this particular industry. She knew what their pain point was. And she was actually building a product while she was working as an HR person in such a corporate. So what she did was, it's kind of like Hollywood, like movie star. Before you became a boxer, oh, I'll be a boxer for like 6 months, right? To understand the culture, right? So just getting into a culture, right? If you cannot be one of them, at least be really close to them and try to understand like who they are, why they are who they are. Oh, I think one thing is understanding your client's success motivation. I think has been a really key. So for instance, if you're trying to make a sales at a corporate level to somebody, a lot of time their success motivation is a promotion. Some people don't see that, right? But if you recognize, okay, this person motivation is a promotion, how can this person use my tool to help his job to get a promotion, right? So when you start talk about the promotion, now you don't even think about other stuff. You're like, how can you actually help this person to be successful?
I think a lot of this is sympathizing, right? Sympathy. Like, I mean, a lot of UX is actually also sympathizing with the users and, making their life easier. And, going back to the use case that you mentioned, and by the way, good time. Yeah, they were like awesome, right? So the whole like, productizing your service consulting is a trend now, but then they started that like, before it became a trend. So they started working first and then, absorbed all this knowledge and productized that know-how. So it's either you can be in the crowd and then about the users because you're the user. That's the best way to sympathize with the potential users because you are one of them. If you're not, then at least you got to be very sympathizing with the user and then understand what they want. And then, hey, how do we like solve these problems for the users? Right.
Right. No, I agree with all the points, and I think it's really overlooked because we look at it and we think we understand it, but we have to, and it goes for UX, right? Because we have to really understand how does the user use it, not how we wrote the manual, right? And also, like you said, with B2B sales, and this is something like everybody overlooks. We always think we sell to a company, right? We never sell to a company, we sell to a person. So what does that person, what that specific person
Right.
that we're talking to, what do they want? I mean, promotion, maybe risk, they don't want to get fired, right? Maybe maybe they want to go home early. Maybe they don't want headaches, right? They don't want anybody to know about problems they have, right? All that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
what is it they want? That's yeah.
So
By the
tell
way,
us about.
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, I got a random question from something you said before. I'm just curious. So, if you see somebody's UX, can you recognize the Figma template? Can you like does that happen often where you go like, oh, I know where that's from. That's a default Figma.
Not so much on the Figma because this is what happens, right? The designers move a little bit faster than engineers, so a lot of times they do want to design a custom user interface that matches their brand. However, people want to build it fast and release fast to get the test early done, right? So they ended up using not the Figma template, but more development front-end template. So like the React template, right? Like some of like JavaScript template. So I see, and even like Material, the Google UI, like half of I think the world startup use Google Material UI. So
Right.
yeah, so I recognize that. The Figma template, I see it more, but the more actually template I see is like the website homepage template, right? Those
Right.
are more see it. User interface wise, it's more to me the front end development, not the like a design.
Yeah, tell us about your startup journey. I mean, so you're part of a startup. Now you're doing design consulting for Korean startups. So, but before that, how did you want to become a startup founder? I mean, you worked at big companies, and how did the entrepreneur bug get into you?
I think it's my personality of a like I told you, I've done computer science, uh, graduated with advertising, website design. I've done so there are a couple like the big thing that I've done in the past. So for instance, I did an import export of custom jewelry from Korea to the US. So I made my second year, our annual revenue was 10 million. It was around a year 2000. And so we did a lot of marketing for that, a lot of like, shipping, exporting, importing. And I also had done
Wait, so so this is 2000?
it
Year
was
2000?
2000 year 2000. So that was actually
Yeah.
really good money at the time,
Yeah,
right? So
10
10
million in
million.
2000
Yeah, that sounds
was
amazing.
great.
Yeah, yeah, and our definite advantage is, I don't know if you've been to Myeongdong at the time in 2000. They were custom jewelry, like cheap jewelry that you see from like the Target, and those Korean people's quality was way, way better, right? And it was really cheap. And so there was a boom, and that's when like Forever 21, Papaya, these Korean brands were booming at the time because they were able to bring like very good-looking Korean brand to the US, right? And it was much cheaper price. So because of my background, and I think Cheng, I think I told you a little bit. I sold a Gangnam style tuxedo during Halloween. For within a 2 month, I sold everything out. I made close to $300,000 in a
Oh
2 month.
God.
Yeah, dude, I shipped like 3,000 the tuxedo unit that I bought from Gangnam, designed it, and I sold it here. So I've been always having this of an entry mindset of, if I see a trend, I want to get on it, right? And I want to like, do something about it, right? And it just that mindset just exploded when I just landed in Silicon Valley. And also, although call myself a designer, I've done some marketing, so I'm more horizontally developed person than like vertical. And I think startup world, these people are more valuable in the very beginning of the stage, because now I can do marketing, branding, sales, right? And even a product development and a little bit. Then if I meet somebody who can just cover like the other side of this place that I'm not good with, then boom, then we can actually run a company, right? That was like super
Wait, so
attractive to
what
me.
happened to the jewelry company? I mean, you were doing great sales, and what happened to the company?
Oh yeah, so then I had to ask myself, right? Is this like that I want to do? Go to jewelry, like convention, pick out like these are the jewelries that I want to do. Because if I was like the fashion designer or fashion person, I might getting into it. But I was actually basically buying stuff and selling it. That's all I was doing, right? And my mindset was more being like creative at the time. And so I ended my business. I got my share, and I left the company, and the company is still running, right? But they did not like expand. It's like you'll see a lot of those Korean American company in like Midwest. They keep it at a pretty good size, right? But they don't like expand beyond that. So they just kind of keep it, and they hand it down to their their kids, which you don't really see here in the Silicon Valley, which is like
Right.
totally different Korean American
Well,
culture.
Silicon Valley is go big or go home, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
so that's how I really got into startup, because I feel like my ability is to help many different areas of the business. When I'm in a corporate, I always feel like I'm really like graded, right? Because a corporate is a lot of like rating culture, right? They're rated for the small part of things that I can actually provide, right? And another big thing is I felt like when I was at a corporate, I spent a lot of my energy competing against each other. Maybe it's just me. I should have not done that, right? But because you get into a culture of a promotion, and like, okay, I'm gonna write my promo package so good that I'm gonna get a promo. That energy is, in my opinion, like not really good for the greater cause, right? I wanted to spend that energy in somewhere actually better. And startup, in my opinion, the time you spend, you see the result more like right away. And I'm competing against the market, not really my peer who does the same thing to me. So that was another my greatest reason why I actually kind of wanted to, get into startup.
so I think, I mean, one of your talents seem to be you can identify trends really, really well. So what's the next trend that you're seeing? Like if you were, let's say, if you were 20, early 20s, have the hustle that you had like back in Myeongdong, right? Uh, what would you do now?
So let me talk about two things. When there's a trend, right? Whoever goes against the trend is going to become the sub trend. So I think the good example is a new jeans. New Jeans was going against the grain because do you know New Jeans, by the way, Abiram?
Of course,
Yeah, New Jeans, right?
of course.
At the time, all the girl groups were like boss, like Blackpink, right? We are tough
Right.
girls, right? And the G Idol, they look really hip hop tough, but all of a sudden they had someone like came from like a New Jeans, right? They're like a super girly, like
Right.
bright pink, like really happy, right? Totally going against, and people loved it. And that happened like here and there. And the where I see this is right now, huge trend is AI this, right? So I think the opposite end of this is super humanized, like handwriting, typography, right? Wooden carved looking feel, way more organic than we have seen in our time. It's like we are only going back to like almost pure level of nature. I think, in my opinion, that is going to be the trendy, because I think a lot of people are going to be really tired of AI soon.
Yeah, so
It's really interesting you say that because
somebody said eating, like a restaurant and fine dining, like that's gonna like there will be more focus on that because you can replace a lot of things with AI, but then you can't replace the eating with AI.
that's super interesting. And I think I mean I agree with you both. It just interesting because I spoke to a founder about lead generation, and we're talking about the people who are not on LinkedIn. So if you're selling to there's a lot of let's call it age groups that are not on LinkedIn, right? Obviously the older people, not I don't mean the very old people. I mean the like late 50s, late 60s, right? They could be general managers, CEOs of something, but they're not on LinkedIn. And how do you reach them? And the answer there is you write them a letter, you write them a handwritten letter. I mean, you don't print it, you don't put it on a postcard. You sit down with paper and you write something personal to them. And like you said, David, that's so against the grain. I
Yeah.
mean, whoever who receives handwritten mail, like nobody, you never
You
ever
can you can
receive that.
have a you can have an AI bot writing for
There
you.
is one. So actually there's a startup who does that. There's a startup who like
Yeah.
does the handwritten, like they
Yeah.
actually have a
Robots.
robot that yeah,
Yeah.
but no, but I don't think, but I think to David's point, like you can recognize when it's AI sending you a LinkedIn
Mm.
message and
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
and
sure,
make it
sure.
impersonal,
Yeah.
right? So I think same with the robot, right? You can understand when it's a robot versus like when it's something like a human wrote. So it's interesting
Mhm.
point you make. Go against the grain.
So then after that, or after Google, did you co-found the Sia with Kisang, or did you join slightly afterwards? Did you start at the
Oh
same
yeah,
time?
so while I was at Google, I was working on I'm a huge like a EDM electronic music fan. So I was working on an app called the Club Radio. And so just very simply put, what I did was putting a playlist of the DJs who's all coming to San Francisco within a month. And you just listen to this playlist. And if you like this music, oh, who is this person? I can buy a ticket. It's a different way to get a ticket than, right? Normally you search for the DJ, right? You just listen to the music. If you like it, then you buy a ticket. And COVID happened. Nobody goes to a club. Nobody goes to a party.
Mhm.
So the following March, right? And people are all like, oh, I wanted to go out, I want to party, but people couldn't go to party. So I threw a Zoom party after virus Zoom party. The interesting thing was people were throwing party on a YouTube. Like a DJ was throwing a party on YouTube, everybody was listening. But what people were missing was party people go there to show themselves, not just
Interaction,
to
yeah.
listen, right? But at
Right.
least to Zoom, if you can turn everybody the video on, people like so people came up all dressed up. They all like all putting on
Mm.
makeup one, like right. So we had like 600 people signed up all at the same time
Wow.
on the party. And I had like very popular DJs from like LA spinning for free because they were quarantined at home, right? They had nothing to do, so they were like just spinning. So I had like famous DJ lined up from like 6 p.m. to like the midnight on a Zoom, and we had about 600 people coming in and out and partying. That's when I recognized, oh, these DJs and the creative people can actually like do something using a Zoom or like a remote. And again, that was the trend. Remember, beginning of a quarantine, anything remote, Zoom related business, right? Like the mental health, like and home training. So whether it was good or not, I kind of got into that a trend. Then I called Gisang because I wanted to validate my idea. What do you
Mhm.
think about a platform where creative people can like have some sort of like a live show, like to make money, right? And to have an income. And Kisang was like, oh, sounds great. I'm doing something similar, but he was doing more of consulting business or like solopreneurs who want to run their business. Like how can they like actually make money? Mine was more of like creative people like DJs, like how they make money. So I'm a designer. Kisang is a startup founder, and I mean engineer. I've known him for about 8 years. We never actually had like crossed like the path. So we were like, okay, let's try something for about a month and then see what we can come up with. And we worked together for about a month, and both of us didn't get paid. We didn't talk about the equity at all. So after a month, let's then talk about like how much equity, like right, because then we're gonna start figuring it out, the work style and how much things that he's gonna be owning, how much things that I'm gonna be owning. Then yeah, that's how we got together. And actually, the biggest spark was with this idea that we had. We entered a idea done by 82 startup here. I'm sure you guys know about them very well. And we won the first place. Um, I think it's a double-edged sword.
Why?
Because your business model has not been proven, but you won something, you got a approval from like a VC, you ended up getting a funding from VC as well, and you started believing that it's actually the right product to build. Then you start not doing testing, right? We just focusing on we have this much money. That was the goal that we are going to make. Let's go make it, right? So you don't pivot around. So I cannot really complain about getting invested, but I think that's what that's why I consider it a double-edged sword.
Interesting. So what would be the lesson then? I mean, you had like some good things going. You won the hackathon, not hackathon, but like a startup competition prize, right? So you can imagine something like TechCrunch Disrupt, or there's a lot of like competitions, and the companies that are winning those competitions, and then you get the initial funding. Would the lesson be like, hey, don't get like complacent, with those successes, and you have to just like focus on users and user metrics? Would that be the lesson, or what would be the lesson?
So I think it depends on which stage you're in, right? So I've never gone beyond A, so I cannot really give you my lesson till then. But till then, it to me is depends on your stage. Money means something different for you, right? Because the pre-seed stage, I don't think they're investing on you to grow your company. Pre-seed is can you actually like run your idea as many as possible in that particular thing that you're passionate about, and can you get as much as data, right? So that when you come to the seed round, you let us know what kind of number that you have actually proven, right? Then where should we kind of actually bet on you depends on the number you gave to us. So instead of a like pre-seed, oh, now we have a pre-seed money, I need to hire somebody to now like have this graph. No, it's more of like how many testing can I actually do, right? Then once you latched on something, then you bring it to a seed funding and saying that, hey, dude, we have a story now because we spent about this much amount of time, this much of money, we got this much of growth. Are you with us or not? Like that should be the mindset. And the next mindset is right at the seed funding will be like which vertical can we actually dominate? It's not even about going to a multiple different vertical. In the seed funding that we have, can we actually be number one in a very special specific market? Once I do that, next round funding is going to be look, with the seed round funding, we dominated one market. We are going to now replicate this to different market with the money. So the lesson with the investment money is know why you got invested in what stage, right? And I just go after that. I think it's more important than just growth at the time. Yeah.
I think that's super important because I think to be honest, the VCs are a lot to blame because the VCs always look later on. I mean, the VCs always want to see the hockey stick and the growth, like you said, and they always have questions like, why you only focus on this vertical? It's the time is not big enough, right? You should be focused on more things. But even though they're saying that, they actually mean what you're saying, right? They actually mean, I mean, you gotta crawl before you walk, and you have to walk before you run, right? So first prove your point, right, and then dominate a vertical, and then expand to other places. Don't jump, too early to stages. So it's really interesting that you had this experience.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like you're going for like a very like a bulletproof PMF, product market fit, right? So
Yeah.
with the funding, don't take that as a sign that, hey, like everything has been fixed now. We can just like go and make things happen. Use that as an opportunity to really like, hey, um, you have to like double check, triple check your PMF, right? You can maybe do some more tests, or you can maybe like try different tactics, but then like, don't stop until you reach the point where you're absolutely certain that, hey, we have found the product market fit. The only thing we have to do is to add fuel to the fire, right?
Yeah, which it
And
will
I
be
think David
later. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, I think David described it well. I think pre-seed is where you get your first very few customers that absolutely love the product, right? That they think like it's a perfect fit for us. That's pre-seed, and then seed, a bit at around the seed stage, you're proving that you can dominate a vertical, like one of the verticals, and then from then, like once you've done once you got a few users who absolutely love your product, and then after you've dominated the vertical, that is when you expand. Is that how you see it, David?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
It
somebody
makes
just
perfect
like
sense to me. It's how it used to be. Yeah.
somebody joked that the one of the main reasons you go to YC is so that you can have money for pivot. So like get the YC funding and then pivot, the next day. But that was
But
just a
but
joke.
but you know but you know we it's a joke, but it's one of those jokes that's not fully joke, because we used to say, I mean, I used to remember startup pitches where they would say, I asked what stage they are, and they said, well, pre-pivot. And it was like half a joke, but it meant like, we're still validating our idea, and we're humble enough to understand that maybe it's not going to validate. I mean, the whole point of validating the idea is not to show that it's validated. It's to check if it's validated, right?
Yep, yep. So David, from there to what you're doing now, helping Korean startups, like, what got you into this? And yeah, why the change? What happened?
Oh yeah, so the CID didn't work out, like many other startups. So I decided to go on my own, and I have a family to feed. So I wanted to look at all the different opportunities, including a working back in a corporate. So while I was working on my resume, I started getting inquiries from the people that I know in Silicon Valley, and because of I'm a president here in a Korean. We call it a K group. It's a Korean group for tech and enthusiasts here. And because of that, I have a lot of connection and people who's doing a lot of Korean startups. So they've been asking to doing a lot of consulting work, and I started helping them. And I recognized, oh, that's actually a niche group that I can go after, because some of the areas where they're having a hard time working in the US is also like the cultural difference between what you find here, and transfer that information back to Korea, to the Korean team who do a lot of product development there. And their question is like, who are you telling me what to do? Kind of like, there are a lot of those, right? So when I actually stepped in, I kind of also knew, oh, okay, the way that need to be communicated, how you need to be communicated, right? So here, like, again, US super direct. I found this on a research, gotta make it. In Korea, is like, who's this guy, right? So there were a lot of those cultural nuances that I recognized that I can actually go in and help to mitigate those, right? That's when I recognize the pattern. So if I go in as this person providing this type of services, I can actually help like this amount of people. So from there, I mean, people have been finding me from the word of mouth and some of my LinkedIn postings. So they've been keeping me busy.
You mentioned like family to feed, right? So
Yeah,
like when you're doing startup, like that's one of the toughest part, especially
yeah,
when
it
you have
is.
family, young family, right? So do you have any thoughts or advice like for people who are, running early stage startups, but then they have family, young family? Is there any like tips or anything that you could have done differently?
Um, Something. I mean, so here. So old Korean saying that people don't complain. There's not enough money for your government. There are too many thieves in the government. That's what somebody
Mhm.
says. To me, I think I see that as a time as well, right? Don't complain that you don't have time. You're just not like utilizing your time right. So when I feel like, oh, I don't have time, I start thinking about where have I wasted my time, right? So that's actually my mantra, and that help me actually focus actually better. So when I do a startup, instead of like, a trying to stay up late, it's more about how do I actually like, utilize it more efficiently. So that's where I put a focus. And to me, like family, there's an advantage of it, having a family too, especially like having kids. Um, in a startup, like every day is like a battle, right? And like nobody will like you, nobody will like invite you to any party. You're not a popular person. You are always somebody who's asking to get, oh, can you test my account? Like, can you test this? Like, can you, right? You're always asking for something, but your kids are somebody who's always going to be accepting you, right? I think that has actually been a keeping me straight in terms of my mental health, right? I'll be like losing my customers here and there. I'm not hitting my sales goal. I come back home and I see my kids and I'm like get rejuvenated. So in terms of a time, you'll never have enough time, but you will never have enough time outside of a startup. Anytime in your life, you'll never have time. It's just the utilizing. And about having family, I just see the positive side of it. So yeah, so those are, yeah, I don't know. I hope that answered your questions.
No, no,
So
you did,
I
you
think you're
did. Yeah.
saying I think you're saying so what I got from your answer mainly is number one, the constraints are what they are, right? So you just have to do your best to figure out how to deal with the constraints, not gonna complain about the stuff you don't have. And the second thing which I tend to agree is family does ground you, right? It is something that is useful and also decreases burnout probably versus like if all you do is work 24/7 with nothing else, like how soon can you get how long can you do it before you burn out?
Mm.
So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's interesting insight.
Yeah, it certainly does get you to think about your time management, right? Because you have the commitment, especially with young kids. So then you get to think about, okay, so everybody has 24 hours and we have a startup to run, which is all consuming, all encompassing work. But you still have obligation to your family. So then you get to think about like how best can I use my time, right?
Think you're testing it out, CK, now, right? With a new baby and a new
Yes.
startup together. So good luck. Let us know how it goes. Keep
Yeah,
us
when,
posted.
when David mentioned Jasper, they also had a newborn, so we're like fellow newborn parents. So I
Oh
can
yeah, that's right.
sympathize a lot with him. Yeah.
Yeah, but doing it while running a startup, while starting a startup, that's a big that's tall
Yeah.
order.
So David, you
Yeah,
mentioned oh, go ahead.
no, I just and another thing is like you will have a conflict with your wife. And I don't know, Cheng. I haven't talked to you about this part. I had never seen a successful startup founder who didn't have conflict with their wives, right? If they
Yeah.
were married, because
Just
of
just just go ask Tom Brady.
oh yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
so that part you guys need to figure it out, right? And yeah, that's going to be a huge a sacrifice that your spouse will have as well. So respect that and understand that they have to go through that as well. So it's
Mhm.
not just you. Your entire
Yep.
family is gonna, yeah, be sacrificing
Absolutely.
for that
Yep.
goal. Yeah.
Yep. So earlier we talked a little bit about the UI tips for Korean startups and launching in the global market. But outside of the UI UX, do you have any other general tips, or do you see any common mistakes for Korean companies trying to go global?
General tips going global. It is they use a lot of general terms. Many of them coming to US and expand, they are not actually like startup. They are more well established in the US. You won't see many Korean company who's going to say, "Oh, my first customer is going to be from the US." You don't see that very often, and I actually have not met a client. So those people who actually have some customer base in the US, in the Korea, and are coming to US, they don't a sharpen, right? It all comes down to again, it's a niche market, niche audience. So even like the graphic design and all that has to be like spoken to that particular specific market. You can be like generic Google-ish looking illustration and think it's clean, then it's going to be satisfying. A lot of a market that you had in Korea is going to satisfy them here, but that's not going to happen. So your messaging and a graphic and your branding has to be very specific to the target audience that you're going after.
So be more specific.
Yeah. Because you already did well in Korea, and I'm sure you probably started with your niche audience in Korea, and you got to the point where your market grew, so you had to kind of go generalize as well. So, and now you're bringing that to Korea, so already generalized product, like, so, but you have to start from what
The
you
US.
did in Korea.
To the
Yeah.
US.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think another thing about the US, especially when you're coming in, is you have to be really good at something. So like you said, you cannot generalize. You have to be, it's okay to not do many things, but the few things you do, you have to do really well, or you have to be like special in that. But then, like you said, especially a company that has done sales in Korea, they are probably overgeneralized at this point, and they're not specific enough so that they can be really, really good at those few things, right? So yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I keep telling people they need to move here, right? Because if you really want to be really specific, you have to actually meet them and you have to get to know them. And I see a lot of Korean CEO, startup founder are more of a CTO role here in the Silicon Valley, because like the Korean, um, they're actually they're just a country as a whole. It's a very like engineering, like manufacturer driven, right? So a lot of engineers, the people who know how to build stuff, became the leader of the product, right? So you see a lot of engineering type CEO in Korea, like a lot of people from like the Keist, right? They're super technical, like that they build something. So now I actually need to sell this particular thing. So you don't see many like service oriented.
Right.
Yeah. So in that case, they don't feel like they want to come to the US, start mingling within a market. Their mindset was never actually like gone through that, because their engineering mindset is what am I going to build to like provide, right? So they don't really particularly start with the people, right? They start with their own product. So that has been a lot of a gap that they could not close.
Right.
Hey, we can go for hours here, but
Yeah.
kind of time to wrap it up a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's already been like 50 minutes plus. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Time goes quickly. So our typical last question to our guests is there any like one tip for if you can go back to your like 20-year-old, like facing your 20-year-old self, is there any advice for your 20-year-old David Lee?
Yeah, I always say I don't regret anything. All the decisions I made, because I give my 100% in everything. However, one thing that I do regret is I never really surrounded myself with who I think it will be a successful people, right? The role models, I never actually surrounded myself, because I'm always somebody who always believe if I do it well, who need a network? As long as I do well, I'm going to do good. But if I actually had like surrounded myself and influenced by them and grew them together, I think I would be in actually I don't know, I'm in a pretty good position, but where I thought I could be, right? When I was younger. So just believe in, how you said, people said you are average of 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think it's a truth. So have some of provide value to them as well, but have them on your side. I think it's very important.
So
I know
really
I
interesting
know
point.
what my advice will be when if I can go back to 20, buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. That's true too. And Nvidia too, right? A lot
Buy
of case.
Bitcoin or
Mine.
Nvidia.
Don't even buy. Mine it.
Mine Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Yeah, mine
at
it.
that
Yeah.
point you can mine it. Yeah.
Cool. Hey, we really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for coming out here.
That's for letting me speak my mind. This was
Yeah.
super interesting. Even think about like I didn't know I was going to be talking about all this. It just came out of my mind. So thanks for
Yeah,
bringing those
absolutely.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes this fun. Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Avram. Thanks, Cheng.
Thanks, David.
Bye bye.